Bert Hardy was a photographer who was born in London, in Southwark, in 1913. He had a very prolific career and he retired in the mid-60s. He left school at 14. One of his first jobs was cycling around London collecting film, working for the Central Photographic Agency. When he was there, he learned a lot about processing film. His first commercial photograph was a photograph that he took in 1935 on a street very near where he lived. The king was passing in procession, but he produced it and managed to sell 200 of it locally to neighbours and friends.
The show includes a broad range of Hardy's work throughout his career. I mean, there's stuff from his early work as a sports photographer and his final jobs as an advertising photographer. But I think the bulk of the show focuses on war photography, social documentary, and the international reportage that he did, in particular in the 40s and the 50s.
He's an extremely versatile photographer, from the work that he produced while in the Army Film and Photographic Unit, so responding to combat situations, to responding very astutely to commercial briefs, to responding to editors of magazines and publications such as Picture Post. He seemed able to turn his hand to whatever type of photography suited his interests and career at the time. And in terms of technically adapting to conditions, adapting cameras, making his own processing chemicals, you know, his technical ability is definitely also to be noted.
I think it's quite hard to say what's distinctive about Bert Hardy's work because he's so versatile and he's working in so many different genres of photography. The one thing that sort of characterises his output is this desire to show photographic subjects to themselves. It's a phrase that I'm kind of stealing from Stuart Hall when he wrote about Picture Post. He said the remarkable thing about the social vision of Picture Post is this desire, this will to show Britain to itself, to show everyday life on the printed page. And Hardy did that, and he did more than that through photographing everyday life around the world.
He was operating with a 35mm camera at a time when certainly the vast majority of press photographers would have still been using plate photography. So he's certainly what we would call today an early adopter of new technologies. And we can see this again in him embracing colour technologies and Kodachrome, and we have some really lovely examples of that in the show that we don't necessarily associate with Bert. So we're really excited to show those to the public.
Photojournalism is in the title of the show for a reason. It's a really big change in the media landscape in the 30s, the advent of photo magazines. Picture Post is launched in 1938 and Bert Hardy's first photographs are in issue number 4. Picture Post explores social issues in a way that newspapers and other publications of the time just weren't doing.
And on that note, I think it's really important to remember that in terms of these publications and most of the commissioning bodies in the various places that Bert would have been working for, the people in charge and also most of his contemporaries weren't from working class backgrounds as he was. So the challenge of operating successfully in those environments at the time for him shouldn't be underestimated.
Anybody who knows the name Bert Hardy might associate his work with a black and white, quite nostalgic picture of Britain in the 1950s. But his work went far beyond that. And there's some really important stuff in the exhibition from around the world, taken in colour, but from conflicts too, after 1945, conflicts in which Britain was involved at the end of empire. There's also really rich work on the living conditions, the everyday lives in Britain through the 40s and the 50s. It's important to look again at our history and to challenge that nostalgic picture we have of Britain in the 20th century. And Hardy's work enables us to do that.